everyone, this is Roberto and welcome back to my channel. Today we're gonna take a quick tour of Unity, overviewing the project location and the scene setup. Let's get into that.
Back to our project. So before we get into a Unity overview, I want to show you where this project has been saved, which is somewhere in your hard drive. So let's go at the bottom left, and you see there is an assets folder here. You can right click and click on Show in Explorer. So that is going to open up the location where your project has been placed. Now, here you will see some folders. So what are these folders? First of all, the assets folder. This is probably the most important one in the sense that this is where you're going to place all your files and assets for your project. For example, models, scripts, audio files, and whatever. So this is very important. This folder cannot be deleted, otherwise your project will simply break. Now, what about the library? Library is a folder that has been created by Unity itself when you create a project. And if you double click on that, you will see a bunch of stuff here that you might ignore for now, but you have to know that this folder, in the case it gets deleted, will just be regenerated the next time you open a project. Logs is just a logs folder. Same thing, you can regenerate this folder if you delete it. Packages. This folder includes a list of packages that your project is currently using. Some of them are built-in, some of them can be downloaded, but we'll see that in the future. Project settings. This other folder is a persistent container for all the project settings. For example, you have your project version file here, which shows you which Unity we are currently using for this project. And many other things that we're not going to take a look at right now, but what you have to know is that this folder cannot be regenerated. If you delete this folder, you are going to lose all the current project settings. Temporary is a temporary folder that Unity generates while the project is open and will disappear once you close the project. User settings, similarly to project settings, are the current user settings. So again, you don't want to delete this folder. vsconfig is the current Visual Studio configuration file, while this last one is your current Visual Studio solution. This is just a solution file. This can be safely deleted because it will be regenerated next time you open a project. So just to show you what I just mentioned, let's go into our project here. Let's close it. And back to our folder, I'm going to select all the folders that I said we can safely delete together with the files, which are library, logs, vsconfig, and the solution. So let's delete them. You also probably notice in the meantime that temporary has gone away because we closed the project. Okay, now if we reopen the project, back to our Unity app, I'm going to click on the project again. And what Unity is doing right now is basically rebuilding the binary files and all those temporary things that are needed for the project to work correctly. This might take a little bit again because, as we know, this is like if we are opening the project again for the first time. And here you go. We just reopen our project, and if we now try to go back to our project root, you should see again all those folders. Alright, so now it's time for a quick Unity overview.
Hold on, before we continue, if you're enjoying this video and you want to support my channel, don't forget to click on the subscribe button below. Thank you so much.
Alright, so I'm gonna start from the bottom left, which is the location of our project browser. This is basically the folder that contains all the assets that you can place in your project. And this folder will always be synchronized with the Windows folder because basically this is just a mirroring of that same folder. Okay, if we go above here, we see the hierarchy tab. So what is this tab for? Here is where all the loaded scene will show up, and this is where we can manipulate the objects in each scene. We'll see that in a future tutorial. But for now, all you have to know is that if you click on any of these objects and jump to the right of it, you see there is an inspector. The inspector is showing all the components that are attached to that object. Alright, if we move to the center here, this is the scene viewer. And the scene viewer allows you to manipulate the selected objects. For example, right now we have the main camera selected, and if you take a look at this little tab here, this allows you to switch to the current tool. In this case, I'm on the move tool, so I can move things around. If I switch to the rotate tool, I can rotate objects around. If I switch to the scale, I can scale objects, okay? You can always do Ctrl Z to go back to the previous state. Now, we'll go into details about this as we proceed with the tutorials. I'm not gonna show you all the available tools right now because that would be overwhelming and not useful right now. But what's really important is that you can switch to the game view by clicking on this other tab, and this shows you what the current camera, the current active camera, is currently seeing and showing here in the game view. Now, I personally don't like this layout because this is done for single monitor setup, which is not always the case. If you want to change the layout, you can go at the top right here and see layout and change to whatever layout you prefer. I usually go for the 2x3 split. Now the 2x3 split is gonna show me the scene view at the top, the game view at the bottom here, and I want to relocate the project tab by simply dragging and dropping it here so that now everything is showing as before, but I feel like this is more consistent because, for example, if I open up my scene, which is the same one as before, I click on the right here, which is, in my opinion, more comfortable to use. And if you take a look at the project at the bottom here, nothing changed. This is your assets folder, and in this case you don't need to switch between scene and game view all the times. Going back to our active scene, you see that main camera is selected and the current manipulator is the scaling manipulator, so I want to switch to the move manipulator. And you probably noticed that this scene is named as untitled because we did not give it a name yet. Now notice that at the top left, Unity shows you the current project name, the currently open scene name, and the current platforms you're working on, and the current project version together with the graphics API version, which in my case is DirectX 11. Now these are useful informations, especially if you have multiple scenes open at the same time, which is possible. So in the hierarchy, you have several scenes and you know which one you're working on because it's bolded here and also because it's named at the top, so you don't accidentally work on an unwanted scene. Okay, before we proceed, let's go down to the project browser and select the assets scene subfolder. And you notice there is a sample scene here. But hey, hold on, we are not working on the sample scene. This scene is currently called untitled. How the hell is that? Well, that's because when you regenerate a project, which means you delete all the binaries and those folders and reopen a project, Unity does not know which was the last scene open, and it simply reopens on a new scene, which is untitled. So in order to work on this sample scene, we just double click on the scene and suddenly you see that the sample scene gets loaded into the hierarchy, and also you see the name of the scene at the top left. So that means we are now working on the sample scene. If you want to rename a scene, but basically anything, in the project browser, right click and just do rename. And let's just rename it my scene. Press enter, and since we are currently working on that scene we are renaming, it's gonna ask you to reload and just click reload. The current scene now is my scene, and you see that change reflected at the top. Okay, one more time, you can always go on File, save the current scene, and also File, save the current project settings. I think we're done for today. In the next tutorial, I will show you how to add and manipulate objects within a scene. And we are also going to learn how to create our first C# script. Side note, there are a lot of functionalities, as you can imagine, that Unity provides, which I'm not gonna show you right now, but we will see as we proceed in our journey. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. See you at the next one.